Hello everybody, welcome to today's puzzle challenge video. This is Ryan Murphy presenting for chessuniversity.com, and this is our third video of the week for puzzle challenges, which means it's the final of the under 1000 difficulty category. So the position we see in front of us here is white to play and win. There's a lot of moves that are winning for white, honestly, because even though material is technically equal, if we're just counting points, white is castled, black is not castled and cannot castle, and also black's about to lose a lot of material. So there's a lot of moves here that are actually winning for white, but I want you to find the one that is the cleanest and also just like maximally optimizes white's edge in this position. So it's also the game move, as it turns out. So we're gonna rewind here and look at how we got to this position played between Titus and Kian on chess.com earlier this year. So this game began symmetrical king's pawn opening, so e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5, knight f6, we have a Berlin defense, d3, protecting the pawn on e4, bishop to c5, castles, knight d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, c3, white uses this opportunity to gain a little bit of space in the center, bishop e6, knight d2, c6, kicking the bishop. It's a good move. And generally speaking, black wants to play for the move pawn to d5. That would free this bishop and also help them get some presence in the center. So bishop a4 was selected, which maintains the pin on the c6, d7 pawns. It's not that easy to play d5 here. So d6, knight to c4, hitting the bishop on b6, bishop to c7, preserving that bishop, and now bishop c2, which is useful in the whole complex of Ruy Lopez and Italian openings. You see this structure quite often, and the idea of putting the bishop on c2 to protect the e4 pawn in order to prepare d4 it is very, very common. So it also gets out of the way of course, b5, which was the main threat back in this position. So very typical move, bishop c2 anyway. Bishop e6, knight to e3. Now this knight can pivot into f5 in some moment. Queen d7. Here probably I would advise black to castle. Seems like the safest move, although d5 is technically playable as well. But yeah, queen d7 allows white to strike in the center and open the position before black is able to get their king completely safe. So d4 was a very strong move played by white. And yeah, it's trouble because, well, in this position, white's coming with d5 actually, which will be very annoying because now this bishop can't go backwards. So the bishop could end up getting kind of stuck. In the game, black made space for the bishop by playing queen e7. And then white went ahead with a4. Other moves are good as well, but a4 is just a typical move to grab some space on the queen side. h6, a5, grabbing more space. Maybe later this pawn on b7 will be of fixed weakness, especially after the next move, a6. So now because of the en passant rule, this pawn is kind of stuck. If black were to ever play the move b6 or b5, you know, in both cases white would probably take on b6, and then black would end up with an isolated pawn on a6, which would be pretty weak. So h3 played, g5. This is way too much in my opinion. Again, black either needs to play for d5 or castle. I would castle sooner rather than later in this position, and then try to open up the center with d5 at the right moment. But g5 is just too much. It extends the king side. Yeah, and white's able to sort of push through in the center anyway with d5. Bishop d7, b3. b3 is a useful move. Sometimes eyeing this idea of bishop a3, which, as we see, was played in the game. So bishop a3, applying some pressure to d6. Now some combination of dc and knight f5 could be very problematic for this pawn on d6. So black's already captured on d5. Knight take d5. Again, notice the importance of this bishop protecting e4. Knight takes d5. Queen takes d5. And yeah, white has a strong queen on the d5 square, but once again, black should have been able to defend this position. Bishop e6 seems like probably the best move in this position for black, just to evict the queen from this strong central square, and afterwards black might even be able to grab this pawn on a5. I still would rather have white in a blitz game, but because black overextended themselves on the king side, but at least black would have a pawn for the suffering they're probably going to endure. So yeah, if we back up here, after this move, e takes d5 turns out to be much stronger, which makes some sense. Grabbing space, limiting both of these squares from the bishop on d7, opening this guy, basically just transforming the pawn structure to one where it's some sort of strange King's Indian formation with a bad bishop on c7, and like black just being overextended on the king side with their king in the center. So that does make sense. But after the trade of pieces and the queen occupying the center, I still prefer white's position practically, but according to the computer, it's not that clear. After this move, however, it is pretty clear that white's doing really well because that hangs the b7 pawn. Here, black went in for the pawn on a5. White took on d6, and black took on c3. And they probably thought, well, material is equal, can't be that bad. But this brings us, as you might remember, to our starting position. So this is our key tactical exercise. So again, if you guys want to solve this one, you can post the solution on our website, chessuniversity.com, or in the YouTube comments, though you only get credit for the rewards points if you do it on the website. So I'll put a link in the description as always, and anyone is free to solve this one regardless of level. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.